I've been very much in two minds about making this video because I don't see myself as a journalist or reporter. I just see myself as a guy showing what he can as he goes through any situation and in Ukraine, and if I then return and whatever conflict zones I'll go to in the future. But I've been talking to all my military mates and as many contacts as I can, and the one thing that's surprising everyone is, I guess, the lack of some of the equipment we thought we would see deployed from the Russian forces into Ukraine that we're just not seeing. The two big ones, and I haven't seen any evidence of this anywhere in the war, and I'm willing to be incorrect on this, but is the T-14 Armata tanks and the Su-57 plane. I guess I don't want to say equivalent, but the Russian attempted equivalent, like an F-22 or F-35. But we haven't seen any evidence of this. And a lot of us are always under the understanding that like a Javelin rocket or whatever will do nothing to a T-14. It will be shot out of the air before it ever gets to it. And it's a weird thing we haven't seen these deployed. And I guess it starts that conspiracy of like, is the Russian military anywhere near as capable as we thought? You know, we always had this understanding that they were a near-peer adversary, that they were, you know, as close to Western, I guess, American firepower as, you know, they're near-peer. But I guess the picture being painted, at least by the Western media, is that they're not. The thing that concerns me in this is this part of a strategy? I think it's very obvious that the vehicles getting sent out, the vehicles at least on the initial break-in of Ukraine, were poorly maintained, very unreliable. And if you see any of the interviews with the soldiers, they were young, unmotivated, and seemingly very low-trained soldiers. And a lot of these, you know, prisoners taken or soldiers captured came under the story of, we didn't even know we were going to war. We thought we were on exercise. And there's so many videos of this. And I know a lot of people will be like, don't believe that. But I guess some of the reason is, why not? I'm seeing some 18-year-old lad scared for his life in front of people for a war he doesn't want to be involved in, saying that, well, we only stopped 10 kilometres back to get live rounds, and then we're told we're going into this. No one knew but the officers. There's a little bit of me that believes that that may be true. And as far as the vehicles we're seeing, I've seen very few more modern tanks and zero of the ultra-modern ones and all old ones. And same with the planes, especially, you know, seeing a lot of frogfoot planes, and they're the ones we were that saw flying overhead in a couple of videos back. But we're not seeing those really high-end ones that you thought you would see on that initial break-in. And part of me thinks that maybe the West has overestimated the Russian force so much and overestimated their equipment and training and leadership. But there's a little bit of me too that thinks this may just all be part of the plan, is you send in your shitter vehicles with your conscript soldiers, and a lot of these guys are conscripted young guys. You send them in basically as cannon fodder. And this is terrible. I'm just saying the way I see it. It's absolutely shocking, but you're probing locations and moving as you can. And this probing of locations, I guess, shows then another force, further Russian forces, where the locations and what they're going to go up against. But they're being used just as a barricade, I guess, for a larger force. But we've also seen, you know, none of the Alpha group really deployed. If from all the people I've talked to, there's been, you know, some units of Spetsnaz reported and special forces, but very, very few. And of that, basically no Alpha group guys reported, being like the highest tier. Another concern that may weigh into this is it's being reported that only 10 to 12% of the Russian forces have actually been deployed. And at the moment, if you believe the media and whatever, which, I guess a lot of it, and believe a lot that's coming out, Ukraine is kicking Russia's ass. And I guess that's true. If you look at the casualties, the vehicles destroyed, the planes destroyed, everything, Ukraine's kicking Russia's ass. But I think what's important to remember in this is, depending on how truthful your reporting is, but it's 100% of the Ukrainian forces, plus the 16,000 Westerners who have gone to fight, against 10 to 12%, if the numbers are to be believed, of the Russian forces. And a lot of people I've spoken to believe that is the worst 10 to 12% of those forces. A lot of Western analysts were also very surprised at how few missiles were fired on that initial invasion. I think something like it's about 900 to 1,000 have been fired of the caliber cruise missiles in a few weeks, where they were expecting more than that day one. When the US conducted Iraqi freedom, they fired almost 400 in the first hours of that war. That said, no matter how you look at this, and even if you take the stance that I sort of have, that is Ukraine is currently, kicking Russia's ass and really holding them off, there is no doubt that Russia is taking ground and will continue to take ground, as it doesn't want to really engage in talks or engage in, I guess, a lot of reason around it. They're still very fixated on that they will just send manpower until they take it. But the reason we're seeing so many Russian vehicles getting killed is the lack of air superiority. It was sort of thought that Russia would instantly have air superiority over Ukraine. And the reason air superiority is so important is, well, once you control the air, you can defend your vehicles on the ground. And there's been a lot of reports that, if you look through, Russia, day 2, declared they had air superiority. And there's been a lot of reports that filtered down into the tank crews at Russia and the armoured vehicles that they had air superiority and then would move more confidently through. And without that air superiority, this is why a lot of those vehicles just got absolutely chewed up by Ukrainian Javelins, MLAWs, all that equipment. But Russia have completely failed at gaining air superiority so far. That said, and I've got some numbers in front of me, the numbers, and this is, just everything. It doesn't include ones in maintenance and, whatever. But Russia had 923 multi-role aircraft, 463 attack, 124 bombers, 546 helicopters, and the Ukrainian government has stated only yesterday that they've shot down 57 aircraft and 83 helicopters. That said, by confirmed independent sources, its own people are saying, and it's probably somewhere in the middle, but confirmed, verified, is only 12 aircraft and 12 helicopters. So I guess if you minus those numbers, like the statement at the beginning of this, war does not determine who is right, only who is left. And if Russia are willing, and as I think you've seen, willing to just send in wave after wave of people to their death to take some level of ground, that's how this may end up looking. But the initial invasion was funny. I was there, only 40, 50 kilometres from the border. And I guess you've probably seen the video of the caliber missile cruising over me. And I had the same idea of this invasion. I think many Western analysts had as well, that their first and foremost goal will be air superiority and, taking out those forces. And as soon as we saw those missiles, sort of, the intel just went to absolutely nothing. It was either super pro-Russian or super pro-Ukrainian, and there was no actually decent intel. So when we were moving around, we were just pretty much going off what we thought would happen. And, as far as I was thinking, I'm thinking if they're full-scale invasion, they're going to take out all those surface-to-air, Ukrainian surface-to-air missiles almost instantly with missiles, you'd think. And they're just going to be flying, it's not a convoy, I guess, but there's massive groups of these bombers. They have massive bombers to just destroy the shit out of everything. And it wasn't until a few days past the invasion that we were still hearing of these guys fighting in trenches and this and that. And it was a bit puzzling to me, thinking, wouldn't that be the first things they would just bomb out? So this is where I guess my misunderstanding of this war comes from, and the tactics I don't really understand. But whether it's a tactic or whether it's just really we overestimated Russia's ability to conduct an operation like this, I don't know. But, we're 2 weeks into the war now, and there's been no sign of slowing. If anything, things are ramping up, especially with the, now the threats and evidences of, I guess, these biological research facilities that no one knows exactly what was going on there, could maybe have a false flag for a Russian chemical attack, and that people are being warned out about Russian chemical attacks, and all this is just going huge. I don't want to speculate on that too much because, well, if you'd like for me to speculate on it, I'm happy to speak my mind and how I see it. I'm happy to do that. But I'd rather just capture things with my camera, and so it's 100% what I see and not speculation. Yeah. But, this is just, I guess, my view on it, and war is shocking either way, and the civilian lives and the lives of, these young people on everywhere is just shocking. It's terrible. These young people fighting, and people leaving and fleeing is absolutely heartbreaking that this would happen in a modern world. You'd just think that humans were better than this, and I think we've proven that at least the commanders and the main fucking bloke in Moscow are not better than this. And maybe that leads me to believe that their tactics are no better than someone drawn in a sandpit with no actual military background, thought for preserving the life of their own soldiers. Either way, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate all the support. It's unbelievable. I'm looking at my computer here. My video has over 1 million views. They're getting 30 views before this was big for me. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a nice day. And wherever you are, stay safe.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.